You're listening to Mayday on the Sheriff Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to an exclusive episode of The Sheriff. Today, guys, I am actually blessed to have a gentleman that may look 20 years younger than me, but we're in the same age group, and I look up to this guy a lot. Now, ladies and gentlemen, my guest today is an incredibly skilled hockey player. He's also the pride of Massachusetts. This man dominated the junior ranks in the Boston area and then led the UMass Amherst Minutemen to the Hockey East Championship game. My guest today is a former Columbus Blue Jacket, New York Islander, Colorado Avalanche. He is an all-around great guy with a combined 500 games in the AHL and NHL. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, the man himself, Greg Mauldin. How are you doing today, my friend?
Good. How about yourself, man? That was a good intro.
Thanks, buddy. I'm all pumped up, bro, because my favorite guests are the ones that are close to me in age, that have incredible journeys, and then I'm really able to pick their brains. And, buddy, you check off every single box. So yes. I'm really pumped up, man. I'm really glad to have you on the show today.
I appreciate you. It was honored when I saw you reached out to me. I was like, man, that's the same guy from back in the day.
Well, yeah, I mean, back in the day, we were talking before the recording, Greg, and like literally the last time we seen each other was the NHL 2004-2005 lockout season when I was playing for the Amerks and you were playing for the Crunch. Two very, very heated rivals in the AHL, right?
Yeah, I mean, those first 2 years when I was there, I think every game there was you and Sugden going at it, and it was like, and just the two cities. It's like, man, what I get myself into, and I've always told a lot of the guys now, like, you haven't played in the American League until you played in like one of the upstate New York teams. You really haven't. So,
what, Greg? You know what, man? Like I agree 100% with what you just said, but like I had never really heard someone say it like that before. But it's so true. Like obviously you're referring to teams like Binghamton, Rochester, Syracuse, even Albany. Right? Like those are blue collar, you're never going to get a night off. And a lot of those teams are always in heated rivalries as well, right? Because of the distance. So sure. Yeah, man, I agree with you. The real AHL experience is upstate New York.
Been there. And I look at some of the AHL teams now out west, and I'm like, they don't even play the same amount of games as the guys out east now. But then I'm just like, some of these guys are in some nice, they're in San Diego and some nice places. I'm like, man, you're in San Jose, like that's not American League in my eyes, But I guess people have to pave the way for that kind of stuff. So, you guys have a little bit, a little fortunate now, so it's good for them.
No, for sure. I have to admit, like when I first found out that like teams like the Ontario Reign, for example, I remember the first year that they I don't know if it was, they might even have been in the Coast, Greg, but I just remember hearing about them, and they were already affiliated with the Kings. They had like the King uniform, but it said Reign. And I'm like, man, this is sick, man. I'm like, where is that? And someone's like, I think it's like Laguna Beach. Like, remember that MTV reality show, Laguna Beach? They're like, I literally think it's like 10 minutes from there. I'm like, wow, man, that is crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Like I have to admit, like I did want to have the experience of playing for a team in the South. Like I was always like a North guy. Like, you know what I mean? I was in Rochester for 4 years, Chicago, Rockford, played in Quebec for a while in the semi-pro league. The UK's no fancy beaches. It's kind of the same weather as here, right? So I never got that opportunity. What about like when you went overseas? I mean, for you, like you were pretty much a North guy too.
Yeah, I mean, I had the one stint there when I got traded from Syracuse to Houston, and that was a shocker. That was a shocker for me. That was like I'm going to the rink in what? Like, you go to the rink in shorts. You go from Syracuse, we got the winter jacket on in February, and then you go to Texas and you're going to the rink in shorts and that sort of thing. It's complete different worlds. Like, you're flying all your games that have taken the bus trips. You're not playing as many 3-and-3s and, the 4-and-5s. All of a sudden, you aren't doing that as much. It's a big difference, So, outside of that, though, yeah, I haven't really been too many I've been up north for the most part. I was in, Binghamton too. I was in Bridgeport. I was in Lake Erie. So I mean, I was up north, and it suited me well. It was fine. It is what it is. You don't really, I think in our line of work, you don't really. It's pretty rare sometimes you get to pick the actual destination of where you're going, but.
Yeah, unless you're Eric Lindros coming into the NHL or something, right? Yeah, Greg. So, dude, like in the intro, obviously, I'm saying the pride of Mass, and the reason why I put that in my intro is when I did my research and I was kind of looking, because I was really curious, man. Because guys in my age group, it's so funny because we're growing up and. You know how there's all those teams from Michigan, like Little Caesars and Honey Baked? We would always compete against those guys because we're so close to Michigan. Now, Massachusetts is a little bit of a distance from Toronto, but we did go to tournaments in Boston. And I know that I played against you as a kid because I know that Greg Mauldin was the flying guy, flying around the ice his whole age. And I want to talk about your beginnings, bro. Like, and please correct me if I don't pronounce it right, but is it Holliston, Mass?
Yep. Holliston, Massachusetts.
Is that the official birthplace of Mr. Greg?
I wasn't born. I mean, I was born in Boston, but I was raised in Holliston. I moved there, I think, when I was 9 months old, and that's all I really know.
Okay, right on.
Yeah, pretty fortunate that I was able to play for the Junior Bruins, and they're actually closer to the Worcester area than they are actually Boston. Okay. So pretty fortunate that I was able to, I didn't have to leave home to go play juniors, which is nice. I worked at the rink that our team played at. So, I was driving this in.
Really?
Skate. Yeah, it was just a way to, to get free ice time. I didn't do the camps and stuff like that when I was a kid. So it was just a way to get that free ice time and
smart.
Get some money on the side too, and took advantage of it.
So, like, how big of a town is Holliston? Like, are we talking, like what would the size be?
Oh, it's small. It's pretty. Oh,
small. So it's small. It's really small.
Yeah.
Like 5,000-10,000.
No, more than that. I'd say like. I don't even want to say because I know I'm going to be so far off, and someone's going to be like, "What the hell's he talking about?" I'd say
but it's known as a smaller city, though.
Yeah, it's more as a smaller town. Like, I mean, not too many people come out of there. I mean,
so what I'm getting at, Greg, is like, so what about the minor hockey growing up? Like, how did that work? Like, what was the team to play for in Holliston? Did you guys have a AAA travel team, or were you limited to like AA because of the size of the town?
We were just doing youth single A when you first got there. We actually had 3 towns combined as one team.
Really?
We would practice it at a place, and then once you started getting better, obviously you started to sort out and find out what travel teams are around there, and there's so many travel teams in the Mass area at that point that it was pretty competitive. I didn't realize until after the fact how competitive it was that like. Parents wouldn't tell other parents about tryouts and stuff because they'd be scared that the other kid would take their kid's spot on a team and that sort of thing. And I'm sure that happened in Toronto. I'm sure a lot. Yeah. And so, we got wind of a couple travel teams. I didn't make the top ones ever. It's actually pretty funny that I got cut from the top team twice and then ended up working for the guy working at that hockey rink that he owns now, and we're good friends and stuff now. And it's funny that. But yeah, I just made some of the other teams that was, it's funny what happens as a kid and how you look at your life, and probably not making that top team the 2 years that I tried out and making, playing for either really bad teams or teams in the middle of the pack, how good I think that was for my career. Because
for your development.
Yeah. You're at a young age, you have to be on all the time. And And you're always going against the best players. It's never a night off when, I know we're talking 11, 12 years old, but that's when you start learning how to play the game and you start figuring your stuff out and learn how to compete and how bad do you want it and that sort of thing, I think.
Yeah. So Greg, the interesting, like, and I'm just kind of tying this together because we're talking about like the time that we were young playing, right? So 2022, I think COVID kind of helped jumpstart it a little bit because people had more time on their hands and were able to, get into projects that kind of hadn't been given enough time before. But what I'm talking about is hockey inclusion, brother. I'm talking about programs that allow kids that don't have two parents, that don't have a household income of over $100,000, that don't have everything that all the elitists have, they're still able to play now. There's programs that are being started to help those kids be involved with the game. When we were growing up, there was nothing like that. Okay. Yeah. So my question to you is, like, in Toronto, such a diverse city, and all these ethnicities all over the place. Bro, we're the same age. When I was growing up in Toronto and I would walk into arena, I wouldn't see anybody that looked like me. Sure. Nobody. No, not one person, right? Yeah. And then, obviously Joel Ward, he's 2 years older than us. He's in 1980. Yeah. We played for the same AAA team, Don Mills Flyers. So how they do it in Toronto is it's every 2 years, right? So the guys that were the 80s would play right after us, not the 81s, the 80s would, right? It would just go like that every 2 years. So I got to see one guy after my game playing on a different team, but there was no one when I would walk into the rink that would look like me. Was that the same situation in Mass?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I had a guy from the neighboring town who was one named Matt Owens, really good player. We actually ended up playing juniors against each other, and he went on to play at UConn for a little bit.
Right on.
So having, I would be honest, like, I was very, very fortunate. Actually come from the same town as Mike Greer. He grew up in my town, so I remember when I was a little kid. He must have just come back from like World Juniors or something, and he had his big USA jacket on, and I was on my bike, and I remember, like, me and my buddy, we were just like, oh, that's Mike, we gotta get his autograph, and we rode our bikes over, and I introduced myself, and I was like, can I get your autograph? And he asked that. I didn't have a pen or anything. He was kind enough to get a pen and paper and sign it for us, and I was fired up. I remember riding home telling my dad all about it, all fired up. So having him in my town, watching him, like, it's a big influence when you have someone like that who's at that point was in college. He's destined to make the NHL, a big guy, and I got to see him. I didn't get to read the papers. Anytime B was on TV, I got to watch him. So outside of, there wasn't very many other black hockey players in my growing up. So having him right there was awesome. And then I remember as I got older in high school, Anson Carter ended up playing for the Boston Bruins. And that was awesome. That was just like every day I got to watch the Bruins play. He was on, and it was like, this is the best ever. And I think those two guys, just where they were in their careers and where they ended up playing, it really fueled me a lot.
Now, and it's so wonderful to hear that, man. I appreciate you sharing that. I'm a huge Mike Greer and Anson Carter fans, right? Huge. Yeah. Now, here's my question to you. When Anson played in Boston, is that when he had the long dreads?
I don't think so.
Do you remember? So. Okay, so he didn't have that flow yet. I don't think he had to
Edmonton. Yeah, I think he was more bald. Like, he kept it tight. And then he went to Edmonton. That's when he, I think, had the dreads, which was funny because then, like, I ended up growing my hair out and had the cornrows.
Did you?
Yeah, and then when I went to college, I grew it out for like 4 years. Like,
how long, Greg?
It was a nice little fro. Like, I had it picked out. And, my freshman year in college, I have a picture of me and it's picked out. And then even when I was in Syracuse, I had the dreads a little bit at the cornrows, and then I just got to the point where I just started shaving it.
Too big of a hassle, right?
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was a big influence on me with that.
The reason why I brought that up is just because, like, I don't know, man. Like, and it's fun for me to talk about because I love to hear what other people have to say about it. But when I saw Anson Carter with long dreads as a skilled NHL forward, sniping goals and just wheeling around that ice and seeing those dreads, I just thought it was the most amazing thing in the world. Like, I'm like, you know what? Hockey is such an old boys club sport. They're all so uptight. You got to put your tie all the way up. You got to do this. You're not so stacked like this. That's, there's all these rules with hockey where all the other sports have gotten past that, right? Hockey still needs to do that. And now you got Anson Carter, just the most authentic looking human being that I've ever seen, just wheeling around. It was such an impact on me. It definitely was for you too. Obviously, you even started growing your stuff.
There was a picture back in the day. I mean this in the nicest way. I think he was in warm-ups with no Bucky on, and the way he floated, it looked like the Predator. You know what I mean? And I remember just being like, man, that looks badass. I just didn't have the patience to grow out that long, but I was like, man, that looks sick. Like,
man,
it was something I'll never forget. Yeah.
And the thing about Anson is that, like, the guy's like, he's like the most polite, like, elegant speaking. Just he's so proper. You know what I'm saying? He was such a good role. He is such a good role model. But when he played for us guys, like our age era, man, he was such a good role model, man. Yeah, man, I like you. We got to give our hats off to Anson, bro. Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't think those guys. And I was fortunate enough to play against Mike my career twice in my career.
Yeah,
and I told him both times, thank you. I don't think he really understood, or even maybe understand now how much he meant to me in my hockey career. Like, I mean, and it's funny because I have people that come up to me and say that, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then it's kind of funny because, like, you don't realize it maybe as if you're the person receiving that compliment. But when I look at Mike, and I remember when I was in Colorado, we got a photo shoot, and there's a picture back home, and I remember, like, thinking to myself, like, I remember telling him, like, hey, you're the reason I'm here. Like, I had you to look up to. You were a guy right in my hometown. I watched you since I was a kid. You gave me your autograph when I was on my bike as a young kid, and and even to that day, he would just he was like really just humble about it. I'm like, yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. How's everyone treating you? You're doing well. Like, if you never need anything, and I'm just like, yeah, and he's still doing it. Like, you're doing it right now. Like,
I'll tell just a very short Mike Kerr story. So obviously he was signed by Buffalo while I was under contract playing in the AHL, right? So I remember, man, one year I got to play 5 preseason games. So I was there for, a solid month, right? Like one of the last cuts. And Greerzy's there. So first of all, Mike Greer, everyone just loved the guy.
Yeah.
Everyone on his teams, even the guys that played against him, everyone had so much respect for Greerzy. I've never really seen that with a player before, where everybody likes him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was one thing. He's a really cool dude too. Like, I remember being like, we all parked in the back, and I remember, I don't know, like me and a couple other guys, we had to like wait for like the sticks to come in or something. We had to help the trainers, and like Greer pulls up. He was driving a Cadillac Escalade. He had a system in the back. I could hear those subs, and I'm just like, this is my career, man. And he just gets out of his Escalade, man, and he's just like, hey boys, what's up? Just walks right in. 10 minutes before, he was in a good time, and yeah, bro, it was so cool, man. Like, it's so cool. It's so cool that you know him personally like that, man. Because like he's been an idol of mine my entire career.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean. It's funny. It's one of those guys that I'd still be like, "Hey, Mike, do you remember me?" I'd probably be like, yeah, of course I remember. You know what I mean? Like, you'd be like,
yeah.
But that's just the way it is. That's the way I still see him, as like on this pedal, and I probably won't ever get out of my head like that. So, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, man. Definitely shout out to Mike Greer, Anson Carter. I love talking about these guys. Thank you, bro. I appreciate that conversation because it's a really big deal to me. So, dude, I want to get back to the Boston Junior Bruins, okay? Because, dude, like, you I have 2 years of stats of that team, okay? And like, bro, like, the Pride of Massachusetts kind of fits for how you performed for the Boston Junior Bruins. Like the last stat that I have is 106 points in 53 games, 48 goals in 53 games. Season before that, 45 goals in 59 games. Yeah. Right? Everything was working out pretty good in your life at that time, bro. You really did well, man.
It's actually interesting because I was going into that first year of juniors, was going into my junior year of high school. My dad didn't want me to play juniors because we really didn't know much about it. Right? I was playing high school hockey and I was getting a lot of points and things were going well. And he's just like, maybe it's good to be a big fish in a small pond, and everyone in town kind of knows you and that sort of thing. I really wanted to play because I remember one of my buddies was playing there. A guy I played at high school with, Mike Mantenuto, who's actually the actor that played Jack O'Callahan in the movie Miracle. That's Mike Mantenuto. Yeah.
Okay, right.
Rest in peace. But so he was playing juniors and I wanted to play. I tried out for his team. I didn't make it. And then I went and tried out for the Junior Bruins. And I actually didn't make the team, which was funny. They put me on their midget team and they said, hey, we're not going to guarantee any time with the junior team, but you can practice with the midget team and the junior team. You'll play with the midget team, and if someone gets hurt, maybe you'll play with the junior team. Blah blah. You'll train all summer with one of the coaches, and that's just the way it's going to be. Like, so you'll go from one practice to the other practice, and you might play with the junior someday, you might not. And I remember it was some tournament going on. I think it was a showcase, and I'd been playing well with the midget team, and someone got hurt with the junior team, and they were going to the semifinals of this tournament. And I remember they were like, "Hey, you're gonna play tomorrow." Like, so I'm I get home, I tell my parents, "Hey, I gotta play." Like, they're going to the semifinals, they need me to play. I'm like, "All right." I remember I had an assist, like maybe in the second period or third period, or like a pretty good assist. And then, and mind you, no one knew me. Like, none of the schools knew me at all. They were like, "Who's this guy?" And then I had the game winner in overtime. And I just remember, I guess after that game, or after the championship game, I had like 5 schools like talking to my coach, like, "Hey, who is this kid?" Blah blah. And then it kind of took off from there, and it just got hot. And then, after that first year of juniors, you start to figure things out. And then that next year, going into my senior year of high school, you train in the summer and you come back and you know the league now, and everyone's looking at you and you're
veteran.
Like, yeah, you're like, I got this. But that year was actually really difficult for me too. My dad ended up passing away that year, my senior year of high school.
God bless his soul, man.
Yeah, 3 days before Christmas, and I remember just sitting there like, this is a guy that, anyone that knows hockey, this is the guy that's taking me to practices, taking me to games, driven up to Montreal, driven up to Toronto, and doing all this traveling. And then, you're always looking up and he's in the stand and, he's cheering you on or recording the games on video. And all of a sudden, as he started getting, more sick and stuff like that, just can't make it to games, too tired, blah, blah, cancer, whatever. And all of a sudden it's over. He's not coming ever again.
Yeah.
So, with that, it was a pretty tough time. But, I'll give credit to my mom and sister picking up the slack, being at those games and cheering me on. But I mean, I remember that time, and I kind of going off on a tangent here, but I don't know.
No, I love it. I don't
know if it was my dad that said this, or, said something to my mom, or said something to my coach or whatever, but it was kind of knowing like, okay, obviously it's going into Christmas break for school. Like, here's a grievance period. After that, like, you're back on the horse. Like, the world doesn't stop for you just because, someone passed away. Like, if you stop, then the world passes you by. And I remember, like, as soon as I came back right away, it was like, I probably should never talk to my coach about this, but right away I came back and it was like, they treated me just like any other time.
Just normal.
Just normal. And at the time as a kid, you're probably thinking, I was probably thinking, "Oh man, what the hell's wrong with you?" The best thing for me. I came back and I remember it was like everything was going in. You know what I mean? It was like definitely had a guardian angel. Like just.
Oh yeah, man.
Just it was crazy. The stuff that was happening. Even guys would come up to me and be like, "Man, I don't know. Like 3 games, you have 12 goals. I don't know, man." like what's going on?
Yeah.
But this
lit it up.
Happens. Yeah, and then you just end up, you play and then just kind of ride that wave of confidence and everything like that. And
Yep.
you know, in that process before my dad passed away, I guess I'd go back. You know, they must have known, they knew he was pretty sick, and that's where I ended up committed to UMass Amherst, because it was kind of far enough away from home, about an hour and 20, far enough away from home where I had that college experience of getting away from home, but close enough that if something was ever broken at home, I could get home. And plus, a lot of the games that we played were closer to my home in Holliston, to my mom's place. So, I mean, she was at every game, you know, for that, especially my freshman year. And I almost feel bad looking back on it, that freshman year, because she would just sit by the bench and just watch me. Wouldn't even watch the game. She would just watch me, make sure I was okay. Like if I was on the bench, she'd be looking at me. and then I think, because she was still trying to find her groove too, you know. And then that sophomore year, she started going. You know, she had my jersey on. She was sitting in the section. She was living it up, like love and life. Yeah, it became a lot of fun.
I'm sure the school treated her very well. They got their star's mom there. They got to take care of her, man.
Yeah, it was actually pretty funny, you know, because she'd walk around with my jersey on, and it was actually pretty cool because, you know, you go into, especially at UMass, everyone's like, "Why are you committing there? They're terrible. They're terrible." And I was like, "Well, I know I'm going to play. It's the best thing probably for me." And everyone's going to BC and BU and these other schools, and I kind of took the off-beaten path just because I knew, like, I wanted to play, and they really wanted me, and it was tough my first year. We only won 8 games, and but then, you know, you look at the second year, we had Thomas Polk come in, we had Stephen Warner, some good players, Matty Anderson come in, and you know, next thing you know, my sophomore year, we're losing in the Hockey East champion or semifinals. You know, so a year from finishing dead last, we're losing in the semifinals, and it was interesting because, you know, that first year you're walking to the rink and people are looking at you like, "We have a hockey team." It's like, yeah. You know, and it was cool because after that freshman year, I got drafted, and I came back, and, you know, it was a lot of the basketball guys, a lot of the football guys were like, "Oh man, you're the hockey guy that got drafted. That's you." Like, "Oh man, we got a brother that got drafted." So they were always at the games, and that just, like, you know, hyped it up even more. And it was like, all right, now I can produce. Like, now I got to show them. And you know, obviously after my junior year, unfortunately we lost in the Hockey East championship game, but in triple overtime. But going from finishing dead last to that within the 3-year span is, it's crazy. And now I look at the UMass program, it's crazy now how good they are.
And you know, like, do you think that it was your class, like your team, that really put the team on the map? I think so.
I think you know, I wouldn't say so, because it really didn't sustain it long enough. You know, like, we were someone to, like, really, like, oh crap, like, here they are, but we didn't sustain it. It was like we had those 2 years we went, and then I think they made it to the national tournament one time, and then it faded out for a little bit, because, like, they did really well because they had Jonathan Quick was the goalie the one year, and he got in there. Yeah. It kind of faded out, and then obviously Makar went there, and Greg Carvel, the coach, who I've spoken with a handful of times, like, and now the program is just and now it's like you know, they're getting top recruits now, and they're doing really well. So I wouldn't say we had a lot to do with it, but I do know going into that freshman year, there was, I think, 11 of us freshmen, and all of us were from Massachusetts. A lot of us, I think there was like maybe one kid that wasn't. It was just like, hey, we all know each other. Let's do this.
That's really cool, man. Now, here's my question to you, Greg. I know that it's not like insane numbers that the top scorers get at that level. And I'm looking at these stats, bro. And every year is incredible. Your second year, the 41 points in 36 games. Where did that rank in the nation, brother?
Honestly, I don't
think it must have been high.
I don't think it ranked actually that high, to be honest.
Really?
I think it, you know, I honestly don't think it was. I think because at that point you had guys like Darren Hayter was there, and he was getting like probably.
Oh yeah, Hayes. I played with him in Chicago.
I mean? Yeah, he was getting his points, and, you know, great guy. You know what I mean? Really good guy, but he was getting his points. You had guys like that were just
they're lighting the lamp.
Yeah, and it was just tough. and you look back and you're like, man, there's so many good players that played there. We're still going up against, Ryan Whitney was in the league on defense. You go against him at least three or four times a year, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, just good players, and honestly, it was one of those things where you look back, like I probably could have had more, I probably could have had less, but
Yeah. You did really well, man.
yeah, you look back and you're like, man, like, you weren't even supposed to be, the team isn't even supposed to be this good, and you're out here leading the way in points. But we had a really good defenseman in Thomas Polk, who was actually a forward converted back to D, and he tore it up. And
Wow.
you get some good, we had some other good incoming freshmen come in, and it just started to click. And and it probably would have been better too that junior year, but I suffered concussion. And I remember, I think I had 15 or 16 goals in that year, and I ended up scoring like in the last 5 games of the season, like 5 games in a row. I scored goals, and it just clicked. And so, sometimes things just happen that way.
Yeah, for sure. Now, this is kind of an exciting topic. Obviously, after your first year, you get drafted. You're in the NHL entry draft, right? Now, pretty solid, Columbus Blue Jackets, 7th round. Not too bad. Now, my question to you is, did you go to the draft?
No, what's funny about that is, so the year before when I was with the Junior Bruins, I was, 106 points, league MVP, blah, 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 all this stuff. I'm thinking I'm getting drafted this year. I'm getting drafted right out of high school. I'm like,
yeah?
I'm sitting there waiting by the phone, like, hey, who's this? I'm like, nothing, no call, anything. And I was so let down that.
Were you rated?
Yeah, I was rated. I was rated.
Okay. Yeah.
And everyone thought I would, and I thought I was, like, because there's other guys in the league that didn't have good numbers, and but they got picked, and scouts do their thing, whatever. So that next year, I remember I was coaching like a AAA Junior Bruins team in Montreal, and I had the old Motorola phone that had like Snake on it or whatever, that game. And I was the kids had just lost, I remember, and I was giving them a talk, and I didn't even hear my phone ring. I didn't even know I got drafted. So then my boss from the rink called me. I see a voicemail, and it's like, telling me I got drafted. And I'm like, okay, cool. You know what I mean? And then I see the message from the team, from the Blue Jackets, and as you know, then like that next week you're packing your stuff up and you're going to development camp. And that year was pretty interesting because they just drafted Rick Nash #1. So it's like here we go. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, dude. No, it's so cool. And then my other question is, what year of the Blue Jackets was it when they drafted you? Like, what year of their existence?
Ooh, it was pretty early.
Yeah, it must have been the second or third. I don't think it was the first, but I think it must have been the second or third. Right away, right?
It was. Yeah, I couldn't tell you what.
Like Jean-Luc Grandpierre, a guest on the show, he was in the expansion draft, and he was like the first year, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was the year before you got drafted.
So I don't believe I played with him. I think he had just left. Yeah, but I remember Fred Brathwaite was my goalie when I left school and I got called up. He was a goalie there, and Manny Malhotra. Manny treated me really well. I'll never forget Manny. He treated me really well. But yeah, those are the guys that are there. It's Gerard Gallant was the coach at the time, and it's just funny when you look like how far everyone has come in that time. Like Nash just had his jersey retired, and
that was such a good ceremony, eh?
Yeah, and you're just thinking, you're like, man, like it's a long time ago, and
where did the last 20 years go? Yeah,
exactly. Man, it's nuts, but yeah, they must have just been fairly new into the league. Yeah.
Right on. Okay, bro, we got to talk about this season. Okay. So we got to talk about 03-04 because I think this year might have been the most exciting, intriguing, anything of your life, man. Okay, so like you're playing for Columbus Syracuse, and UMass Amherst, all in the same season. You had just led the team to that championship game. And then how long after that were you in Columbus, bro?
It was pretty quick. I probably knew because just the way the run went at UMass, I was like, I don't know if can we do this again? I don't know, like how's it gonna work? And I remember Thomas it was a senior year, he was gonna sign, and I'm like, right, that's a huge piece we're losing. He was up for Hobie Baker that year, and I kind of over, and I remember just going home and like, and at this point, it's funny what you think when you're that age, when you know what I mean, you're 21, you're like, this is what I want to do, and then you look at it now and you're like, what an idiot, you know what I mean? And I'm just being honest about it, like, at that time I'm leaving, and I'm thinking, the only thing I'm thinking is like, my lifelong dream was to play in the NHL, and I know if I sign right now, I'm going right to Columbus, and whatever anyone says, my dream has come true.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you think you're ready, you're like, yeah, I'm ready, I can do this. I was doing well in college, and then you get there, and then you line up right next to Sergei Fedorov in your first game, and you're like,
jeez,
oh man, you know what I mean? Like seriously, you're like, oh man, you're like, even not even that, even you get into practice, you got old school guys, you got Andrew Castle, you got Luke Richardson on D, you got Jeff Sanderson, and then my games went like this. They went like, I think I played Anaheim, Buffalo, and Nashville, and then it went Detroit, Colorado, Detroit, and in that time it was like Yzerman, Sakic, Forsberg, Solane, Carrera, Hull. Like it was just one of these things where I remember sitting back thinking to myself, what am I doing here? And that year, Detroit had just got the President's Trophy and they're presenting it to him, and I'm like, you know what I mean?
That's so awesome.
And then you really start hearing about the lockout year that following year coming up, and you're like, man, I should have stayed in school. Like, I should have stayed. And then when it really hit me was, then the NHL season ended and Syracuse is going to the playoffs. And I think one of my first games was against Rochester. And I was like, I was like, this is a jungle. Like, what are we doing here? Like, I'm pretty sure it was you and Sugden going after it. There was Paul Gosted there.
Jeff Peters, all these.
Yeah, Jeff. I remember at the face-off, he was like, "You want to go?" And I'm like, "No, stop it! Like, get out of here!" And then I remember this distinctly because we had Gary Agnew as the coach, and it's funny at the time you're like, "Oh, this guy's a dick," but I remember after when I got traded from him, and I was over in Sweden a couple years later, I was like, oh, it clicked with me. I was like, I understand what he was talking about. I get what he was talking about throughout those 2 years that I had him. But I remember distinctly played you guys in the first round of the playoffs, and I just obviously left school, played a couple games in the show. It was a wall battle. I didn't get the puck out. That was in the first period. That was one shift, and that was to the bench. And I didn't see the rest of the playoffs. And that was just a very, very valuable lesson for me at that time. About playoff hockey and really playing it, and even then having him that next year, the next 2 years, especially that lockout year. I mean, that lockout,
that was a crazy year, man.
Derek Boy, you had Vanek, you had Miller and net. I mean,
we were stacked.
Stacked.
You guys were stacked too, but we were stacked.
You guys are stacked, but I mean, then you look at Binghamton. They had Spezza was down, Buchansky. You know what I mean? Like Chanikov was down. Like
Chris Gill was down there.
Like, and you go down the road and you see Wilkes-Barre, and they got Flaherty and that. You got Whit. And it was just one of those things. And Albany had Parisi, and you're thinking to yourself, you're like, even that year, I was like, man, maybe I bit off more than I could chew. Like, maybe I should have. I would have been maybe better if I spent another year at school. But that senior year, graduated and went from there. But like, that's simple. You make choices and you don't look back, and you just try to keep on moving forward. And that next year, I felt a little more confident going to the American League. But then I was traded, and then after that, to Houston. And
Now, okay, so I did see that you're in Houston. I did see that. And I wanted to ask you because Houston and San Antonio, like the Texas teams when I was in the AHL, when we were in the AHL, they were my favorite road trips. I loved Houston. Obviously, it's a lot nicer when you're visiting and whatever. It's more exciting and stuff, right? But man, I couldn't get over just the fact that it's the same arena as the Houston Rockets. You know what I mean? I remember Derek Bugard, the boogeyman, God bless his soul. He was in Houston. So I remember, always getting myself up to fight the boogeyman. And then at that time, he wasn't even that good of a fighter yet. He hadn't even got to the NHL yet. He wasn't the boogeyman yet. So, it wasn't that hard of a fight. Then we get to go out in Houston, H-Town. Well, I know you weren't there for that long, but is Houston pretty cool or what?
It was cool. It was a cool spot.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was tough though because you were always, when you're on the road, you're going from Texas to like playing in Milwaukee and Chicago. So you're always kind of traveling. You're playing against the Peorias and that sort of thing. But when we had home games, it was awesome, and it was even cooler because I was there with Sean Bell and Joel Ward, and it was just awesome. I was like, oh, sick.
Oh, Wardo was there when you were?
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, I got to know Wardo. That was before he made it to the show and everything like that. But it was,
wow. I
mean, just going there and that team is a really good team, but very laid back. It seemed like it was like this, all offense here, just really really chill, laid back type atmosphere. And but yeah, the guys had their fun there. It was funny. It was just like the way the things that were in were just a bit different at the time. When started a little bit tighter and a lot of accountability with Gary, and then the other coach we had there was like, let's just play offense. And we had guys there. I think O'Sullivan was there, and he was getting like 100 points his rookie year, and you had a couple of guys. You had Eric Westrom there, and Kirby Law. The guys getting 3 guys with 100 points. Like, just what I mean. It was just more of like
Kirby Law, man. That guy was sick.
That's a name. I'm going way back in the.
No, that guy was sick, man. His name was always on the top of the stat pack.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, some people listening are like, "Who are these guys?" I'm going way back into the archives of players, but really good players.
So, and thanks for sharing that, buddy. So now, Greg, like, it's so awesome talking to you because, like, you speak so well and you explain yourself very well. Whenever I have guys that had good careers overseas, right? I mean, currently you're playing in Norway, but this time of the timeline, right after Houston, is when you made the decision that you were going to see something different, right? Like, is that kind of the angle on it, or was it just the best deal out there? Like what was the decision factor for a young Greg Mauldin to go overseas to an elite league per se?
It was at that time after Houston, that wasn't my decision at all. That was
okay.
That was to be honest, that was me not handling my business and doing the things that I needed to get another contract from teams.
Okay.
That's just the straight honest truth of it. I'd love to say like, oh, the team screwed me, blah blah. Like, I just wasn't good. I didn't know what my role was. I didn't know it. At school, I'm a goal scorer, this, that, or anything. I was trying to find my way that lockout year, and then the next year I still didn't really know what I was. Like, I could score, but I wasn't doing it. And I just didn't have any contracts. And I played like 2 games in the United League, and then my agent was like, "Hey, you can go over play in the second league in Sweden." I went there, and it's funny, like I said earlier, about not making certain teams. Like, certain things in your life come along, and they help you refocus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not saying that I wasn't focused before, but you start really dialing in, like, what's going on here. And I remember that time in Sweden, we're on a team that didn't have a lot of money. We had to go back to use the wood sticks. Everyone had to use wood sticks.
Really?
It was either righty or lefty, and then you had to bend it your own way. You had to heat it up and bend it, so it always had a different curve. And then you start to learn. And I was only North American on my team.
Really? You were the only import?
The only North American. There was a Finnish guy there. There was another Finnish guy there, but the coach only spoke Swedish, so I had to kind of pick up some words here. They're pretty quick. And then, I just said, you know what? Like, when I came back, I was like, no, like, this isn't happening again like this. Like, I'm resetting myself. It's actually funny because when I got there, we had a young defenseman there that everyone was like all hyped up about, and I'm like, who's this kid? And come to find out, it's funny now looking. It's easy at the time you could see he's a good defenseman, but then like you look years later, it was Nicholas Hjalmarsson. Yeah,
I know Hjalmarsson, man. I played with him in Rockford.
Jelly. Yeah. So
Jelly.
you're like, man, this is the kid, and he came from that. So it's just funny how you make things work out. But yeah, I remember coming back that summer after living in Sweden. I was like, okay, like I know what kind of player I'm going to be, and I know how to. Like I said, it clicked in on what Gary was trying to instill in me in those 2 years pro. And yeah, I didn't want to go to Sweden, but it was the best thing that ever happened in my career at that time.
Now, saying that, Greg, you mentioned second league, but I have info on the first league.
Oh no, I only got to the Allsvenska league. Yeah. I never,
okay. Well, it says Sweden won, so I just assumed.
Yeah.
Right, but anyway, what I'm trying to get at is that it's extremely good hockey, though, in those Swedish elite leagues, right? Like it's taught when you look at Europe as a whole. I always look at the DEL. I look at Switzerland. I look at Sweden. I look at Finland, right? And it's very, very good hockey. And so you think that the bigger ice surface, you've been able to work on certain things in your game, that really was the turning point for you, that Sweden experience?
Yeah, because the bigger ice, not because of the skill, because I figured out that I'm going to be a really good PK guy. I'm going to be really good on the penalty kill. And then you get PKing on the Olympic ice, and then you come and play that next year. I played in Binghamton on that tight ice. Penalty kill was easy. I can tell you how easy that was. And then it just then the confidence got going, and I could play power play, and then the coaches trusted you more, and you're getting more ice time, and that's how I started to get back to have the career that I did, I guess.
But now with the Binghamton Senators, you start putting up some pretty big numbers, bro. Like, because the AHL, like, it's funny, like people look at like the top scorers in different leagues, but it always seems like the AHL scoring is a little bit less than the NHL scoring. You know what I'm saying? Like the AHL leaders. So, like, for example, bro, you had 51 points in 80 games, almost a 24 goal season, right? Were you the top scorer on your team?
I think I was
second, maybe.
Yeah, I think I was like right behind Denny Hamel, maybe.
Denny Hamel, holy, what a guy! Eh? You play all year with Denny?
I played 2 years. I played on his line. Yeah. So.
Did you guys get along pretty well?
Sometimes.
Come see, come saw.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I hear you, bro. But, I played with Denny for one season.
Yeah.
He was on a one-way playing in Rochester. So I mean, he was happy on payday, but he was miserable the rest of the time, right?
See that. I mean, he was kind of the mayor of that city. But
yeah,
I'll say like there's a lot of things that took place in those 2 years that really, that second year, all you do is 80 games is the most you play. So I played every game that year.
Every single game.
That was something I really prided myself on. Like, I remember I fractured my foot. I was like, no, I'm playing. I'm playing. And I remember we had one guy at the end of the season. He was a Swedish guy. He's like, he played in every game. He's like, you didn't get sick once. You didn't. And I was like, I did. And it was something I really hung my hat on. Like, at the end of it all, like, okay, yeah, I had good numbers, but I was like, my biggest number was I played every game that year. Every game. And it's something that I'll take with me to, I just you know what I mean? You hear about it. You see guys, you see like Yandel going this whole this Ironman streak and these things. You just don't know the luck that it takes, and getting through stuff. And I really hang my hat on that because, that was a good year for me.
Yeah, well, let me add to that a little bit, Greg. First of all, I want the listeners to understand that there's different rules between the pro leagues in North America. Like in the NHL, for example. Like in the NHLPA, their agreement that they have with the league, you have to be in a 5-star hotel. You have to get to the game. I think it's like 14 hours before, like it's the day before the game, pretty much. Okay. So there's all these little stipulations and so be it. The players deserve it. They're a very small number. They're the elite in the world, and they get these perks. Now, in the American Hockey League, ladies and gentlemen, it's a little bit different. 3-and-3s are a very common theme that an AHL player will have on a weekly basis. That's 3 games in 3 nights. Sometimes you'll play like 5 games in 7 nights.
We'll do the 4-and-5s.
4-and-5s, right?
Like
You're on the bus. Hey, Greg, you'll be on the bus and you'll literally get to the town at like 4 or 5 in the morning. You're in your tracksuit. You roll out of the bus. You go to your room. You just excuse my language. You just kind of flop on your bed, and then you wake up 2 hours later, actually get under your covers, but then you wake up 5 hours later because you got a morning skate and you got to play that next day. And your best sleep is that pregame nap. Never mind the night before.
Yeah.
Right, Greg?
I tell you, that thing does wonders. It's funny. Like, people think it's funny. I'll watch like NHL games and people are like, oh, the travel that this guy's gone through, and I'm like, if people understood what people go through in the American League on the coast, you get your $12 to get your little chicken wings after the game or whatever you're gonna get, like, to, put in a little cup that you had to do back in the day. Like, the menu wasn't. It's not like you were eating a lot of great food. Yeah, like sometimes you get that dinosaur barbecue.
The dinosaur, yeah, Syracuse and Rochester, yeah, buddy.
It's not always things, and
it's a grind.
You really, like, I really respect guys that have played in the coast to the American League and made it to this show, like a Beagle. You're just like, oh my god. And even Beagle, I'm kind of like a little bit like, man, you played in Hershey, like really,
borderline,
yeah, but like those guys that do it, like you got to tip your hat to them. Like, it could be very easy to get complacent and say, hey, I'm just an East Coast guy for life. I'm gonna get points. I'm in a city that loves me, blah blah. Or same thing in the American League, and for guys to grind it out, and it's funny because I hear guys now are making like really good money in the American League as veterans.
Yeah.
I'm thinking
like 150, 200 type of deal.
Like more than that, yeah. Like, guys were making more than that, and I was like, what? I was like, that wasn't even thought of.
No, 75, 80 was a great salary.
Yeah, but it's like okay, well, people always pave the way for the next group, the next group. So, it is what it is. But yeah, like like I said earlier, like, you haven't played in the American League in my eyes until you played in upstate New York, because you're just sometimes you don't get the best weather and you're in not some great places, and like you said. Like you said, I mean, there was one time I remember we actually played in Texas. We played in Houston. I was in Binghamton. We flew back. There was a flight delay, whatever. The game was supposed to be at 7:00 game. We landed back in 10, like 4:45. So we traveled all day. So we had to get wet equipment, get it on, and play Springfield, and we ended up winning. And it was like,
no way.
It was like, did we just do this? Like,
yeah.
And what it is, you just suck it up and play it, and it sucks at the time, but like I'm saying, now you look back at that story, you're like, wow, I've been through worse crap than whatever I've going through now, and you get callous to it, and you weather it, and you just go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm glad that you told that story, because I love to let the listeners understand the differences between the leagues and how much credit you really need to give guys like Greg Mauldin that plays an 80-game season for the Binghamton Senators, right? And like, I mean, even in that arena, Greg, like okay, the size of Binghamton's rink is obviously smaller than an NHL standard size. Yeah. I think it might be the smallest surface I've ever played on, man. Right?
There's nowhere to hide. It's tight.
There's nowhere to hide.
Nowhere to hide. It's real tight. And I mean, you get hit just by accident. You know what I mean? You're right there. It's tight. Like, you had, and then again, as when things are tight, you can take advantage of it. Like, things happen quick. So, like, you beat a guy one-on-one, like, you're at the net. There's no bad place to shoot from, really.
Yeah. Shoot from everywhere in that rink.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's sometimes people don't understand that, but it's when I played in Syracuse and played against them, I hated it. When I played there, I actually loved the rink. It's awesome.
Right on, man. Yes, so it's one of those rinks that you either hate it or love it. But if it's your home rink, you could really get used to it, though, right?
Awesome.
Right on, man. So, dude, I want to talk about the year with the Islanders and the Sound Tigers. So now you're coming off very strong AHL production, which obviously got, attention of some NHL teams. Was there a little bit of a bidding war when New York signed you? Like, did you have a choice to make? Because you came off some pretty strong years there.
It was interesting. So at that time, I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm gonna throw anyone under the bus, but like, so Corey Clouston was our coach in Binghamton, and he got the job in Ottawa midway through. They ended up firing, I think, Craig Hartsburg, and he got the job. And he was a big fan of mine. He's the one that really kind of helped push me, and
He's a big supporter of you.
Yeah, he liked me as a player. And there's a couple times where the guys were getting called up, and I was playing really well, and Ottawa had called up other guys. And I don't know if too many coaches do this or what happened, but he ended up making a phone call to our new head coach, just pretty much saying, "Hey, like, let Mauldin know I'm trying to do everything to get him up here, but it looks like he's not going to get his chance with this organization. Like, he should look somewhere else." And I hope I'm not throwing him under the bus, but to me, that's like just a good guy move on a guy that's looking. Yeah. He's like, you just go somewhere else. So it ended up, I remember that, and Bridgeport was just right there. It was, they came right away, and it was good. It was kind of nice after having to go to Sweden. All of a sudden you had teams like off, trying to figure things out where you're going to go. And it was exciting. And I thought, okay, Islanders, maybe I can get my chance, or, they haven't been really doing that great. Maybe I can get an opportunity and that sort of thing. And then I really never did. Like I said, I ended up leading that team and scoring. I played, I think, 77 games or something like that. I played a lot.
You only missed 3 games. I was going to ask you if you led the team that year, because it was another 25-goal season, 54 points, almost a point per game. And it's like you did get the sniff, though. You got the sniff. You got tell me about that call up. How did that all come about?
So in Bridgeport, we didn't live in Bridgeport. We lived in Milford. I remember the coach came down. Capuano was the coach, and he came down. We're all outside. Then we actually lived on the beach, and he came up, and we were on the beach, and he lived down the street. And he came, and
This is in Connecticut?
Yeah, this is in Connecticut, in Milford. Yeah. And he came up to me. He's like, as everyone's leaving, he's kind of like, hey, you're gonna go up. You're gonna get called up to the Islanders. Tomorrow. You're gonna play tomorrow. And so I'm thinking, all right, am I gonna leave? I ended up having to leave the next morning at 6 a.m. We played in Pittsburgh in the Igloo against Sidney Crosby, Malkin, all those guys. That was my one call up. We got shell shocked. I think we lost 7-3, something like that. And
how was the Islanders at that time? Were they a strong team at that time, though, or were they a non-playoff team?
That year they just drafted John Tavares first overall.
Okay, rebuilt.
Yeah, they were starting to rebuild. Yeah, exactly, rebuild. And it was just a struggle. Like, it was what it was. Pittsburgh was just, I remember I ended up playing center that night, and I actually did really well against Crosby and faceoffs. To be honest, I won 3.
How many draws against Crosby?
3 out of 4, and the one that I lost was the coach put me out there. It was like maybe 5 seconds left in the period, and he's like, "Hey, I want you to win this draw, win it back to Tavares," and I lost it clean. I lost it so clean. I was like, oh man, that was it. And then I remember the game ended, and got on the plane. I was sitting next to Trevor Gillies on the plane, and it was funny.
Guilt trade.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm sitting next to him, and a lady comes by, and I was hungry because it was a long day of travel and everything, and I had the filet mignon, and then I was like, I'm hungry. Can I get something else? And she's like, yeah. What would you like? Would you like another filet of the lobster tail? I'm thinking to myself, I was just in Bridgeport 2 days ago trying to figure out if I could get a sub or chicken wings for the post game meal. Now I'm going filet mignon or freaking lobster on this chartered flight. And then I landed there, and I got sent down right away. So then I got sent down. I had to play the next day with Bridgeport, and you just little sleep, you get up and you do it. It's just what it is.
Yeah. What did the guilt train have?
I think he had like 2 fillets and then yeah, like and some potatoes. Like he was awesome. Even when he was down with us in Bridgeport, he was awesome. And I look back on with all the guys that, especially growing up in those first 2 years, that the fighters, like when I think Gilly was in Albany, and then you had yourself, you had Sugden, you had Scroy, you had
Bonvie,
yeah,
Yablo.
you had McGrath in there. You're just like, man, like. And if I said something to any of these young kids now, they'd be like, "Who's that? Who's that?" And I'm like, to me, I'm like, these are the OGs of it all. Like you guys, like, obviously you guys, the guys that you looked up to, but I'm like, some of the stuff that goes on now that I see it, I'm like, there's not really those tough guys now, and I see a lot of guys that, not saying that I'm like some huge fighter by any means, because I think I fought like 5 times, but like. Guys that are like bigger guys now that act like fighters, I'm like, you guys wouldn't have stood a chance back in the day. I'm like, you wouldn't have stood a chance.
No, I hear you.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I don't mean that as disrespect to the guys now, but I'm just like,
it was a different era.
It was just a different time. And I remember one time I was playing center in Syracuse, and I remember coach was like, "You're gonna play 4th line tonight." And I remember looking at my line. I'm center. I had freaking Scroy on one side and Sugden on the other side. And I'm like, no one's touching me tonight. I was like, no one's touching me.
You can do whatever you want, my friend. I'm sure they told you that too.
They told
me
to
do whatever you want tonight, Maulds.
I remember we ended up scoring a goal and like the crowd went nuts. And it was like.
You guys scored when you played with them?
Yeah, I think I drove wide and Sugden drove the back post and I threw it there. He tipped it in. And obviously,
nice.
Sugden's in Syracuse. You know how it was. And he was, crowd was going nuts. So I'm thinking to myself, we're just out here just to like create energy and mess things up. We out here score a goal. Like, what I feel like, good stuff though. Yeah. So Gilly's a good guy, really good guy.
Yeah, no, 100%, dude. Okay, so dude, here's a very, very exciting time of your career, in my opinion. July 2nd, 2010, sign a 1-year contract with the Colorado Avalanche. Okay, so now this organization, obviously, you had very good success with. What was that training camp like going into Colorado? New team, new set of guys.
Yeah, that was different. Just because going in that summer, when I remember talking to the AHL GM, Dave Oliver and Dave Quinn. And I remember just them saying, like, listen, like, we think you have a good chance to play NHL games. And, if you don't, you'll come down to us in Lake Erie, and we'll do everything in our power to help you get up there as long as you, do your part and handle your business and give us 100%, and then some.
Yeah.
And it's funny how you hear that kind of conversation a lot from coach and stuff like that. But I remember going to training camp and I was like, okay, like they have their prospects. I understand it. I'm 20 at this time. They have their prospects. It is what it is. And I get sent down. And then right away they were like, they met with me, like we said earlier, like if it happens, like that happens, like, now, yes, you have to work your way to get it. And I remember it was just like, we're going to work. And being one of the older guys at this point, just funny to say as one of the older guys, but we worked, and things were clicking well, and I had some other veterans there that played really well, and we were getting points early and often. And I remember Dave Oliver came up to me and he was so happy, like he called me in the and he was really excited, and I just still remember this because he's like, hey, so you're gonna get, he's like, Colorado's playing in Columbus tonight. And I'm like, yeah, I know. He goes, and you're gonna be there. You're going up. And I was like, what? And I was like, well, this is, this is awesome. Like, this is what we talked about. And I just think remember, he goes, yeah, we're gonna send an email. You get the email and blah blah blah. And so I pull up my phone and it's like still like the old school like flip. But he goes, on the phone.
That's what he said.
Yeah. So then I had to drive down to get a rental car. I drive down to Columbus, which was awesome because the team that drafted me. And then I meet all the guys there. We played the next day and scored my first.
So you didn't have to play that night. You
I didn't
got
have to play
at
that
least.
night.
Okay.
Yeah, I ended up getting my stuff and driving down. I drove to Columbus then. It was like 2 hours. It wasn't a big deal. And that whole 2 hours, I'm on the phone making calls. Hey, I'm playing. I
Oh,
coupled
yeah.
up.
Yeah.
You know how it is.
Yeah.
And then, I ended up scoring a shorthanded game-winning goal against the team that drafted me. And my
first goal. That was your first NHL goal, correct?
That was my first NHL goal, and it was like 7 years after my first NHL game. It was, that's when you talk about putting in the work and sticking with it. And maybe I didn't have the 10-year NHL career or whatever, but like just to get back to that point where, like I said, like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be good at killing penalties, and I score a shorthanded game-winning goal, and it was just one of those things that I remember after that game, my phone had so many messages. So like, it was probably obviously the greatest feeling.
Oh yeah,
that
dude,
you could have.
Yeah. Now, how did you score the goal? Tell me about the goal. But I also the second part of the question is, were you kind of like, you know what? I'm gonna show these guys. I'm gonna bury a goal tonight, man. These guys not re-signing me. Who do they think they are?
So you know what's funny? When I left school to play NHL games, I sat there and I was like, well, I'm not ready. Like, this is over. I went back and played against Pittsburgh when I was with the Islanders. I was like, okay, I'm here. Like, this is. I wouldn't got called at that time. I'm like, I don't give a fuck who it is. Like, I deserve to be here. Like, I've earned this. Like, ready.
Yeah.
And that was my mentality. It was like I'm ready for this. And it was just like I said, it was a shorthanded goal. Like, I think it was. They're killing the penalty. It went to the half wall. I think Voracek shot it, missed it wide. It rimmed out. David Jones picked up on the other side, and I raced up ice to make it a 2-on-1. He slipped it to me, and I think Steve Mason was the goalie, and I went high blocker.
Yeah, Mason was the goalie.
I went high blocker, and I just fist pumped, and that's all I remember. And
So like a classic pump?
Oh no, it was.
What was it?
It was coming up pretty hard. It was coming down on the right side of the net. So I almost lost my balance. Like, I'm shooting, and I'm just
okay.
Yeah, just one hard.
Oh, okay.
And it was just a hard yeah. And it's funny, when you score goals, you don't really know what happens, but then I hear it after the fact. I'm like, and I had friends tell me, they're like, because I didn't know. I was like, what happened? How did I celebrate? They're like, yeah, you just gave one hard scream, like pretty much like letting it all out. Like, hey, you've been saving that one for so long, and that's pretty much what it felt like. And it's funny how that happened. We have no time to celebrate because the next day we had to go play Detroit. You know what I mean? And then boom, boom, things happen quick.
That's it.
And it's like, hey, that was cool. And it's like, yeah, okay, pack your stuff. Now we're going to Detroit. Like, we handle Datsuk and Zetterberg and these guys.
Yeah.
That's
right on, man. That's so cool. Where's the puck?
It's honestly, I want to say it's in my basement, but I think I gave it to, I may have given it to my buddy, to put. His dad has like a collection in Cape Cod, and they're really good friends. Yeah, they're really good family friends of mine. He has like a whole sports collection. I know I gave him a jersey. I'm not sure if I gave him the puck, but
it's somewhere safe though, right?
Yeah, it's somewhere
safe.
It's somewhere safe. It's funny. It's not like, like nowadays everything's on social media. They're holding the puck and it says like first goal. Like, then it was just so like, you just gotta keep it yourself, or like they put it to me in a plaque or whatever. And it wasn't some ceremony, but I'll never forget it.
Yeah, dude. And then so that year in Colorado, I mean, at what point, like, I know you were saying, like, even from the Islanders game, you're like, like, I'm like, I should be here. I feel like I belong. But like, at what point, like, you were there for so long, like, what point were you like, I'm a regular NHLer now? Like, was it a couple weeks in? Did it take a couple of months? Like, well, how long did it take?
Yeah, it's funny. I never really felt that way.
Okay.
Just because the role I was playing, like, I want to say in that first game, I played 10 minutes, and then a couple of the games right around that, and then all of a sudden, I remember one game against Edmonton, I played 4.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's just the way it is. And then I remember someone got hurt or something, and I don't know how it worked out, and we were playing Minnesota Wild, and someone got hurt. I think it was like Anthony Stewart got hurt. He left, and then maybe Winnick left.
Chris Stewart.
Yeah, Chris Stewart.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris Stewart. Yeah, and next, I find myself on like the first line with like David Jones and Duchesne, and ended up having 2-2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 2-2 at a 4-point night, and
Wow.
it was nuts, and it was like, you know what I mean? Yeah, and I ended up playing like 16 minutes that night, and then after that, it ended up becoming on a line with Winnick and O'Reilly. And it was actually kind of cool because we ended up going on a East Coast road trip. We played Washington, and they're like, we're gonna match up against Ovechkin's line. And and I remember my mom was in town. My captain from juniors, him and his family were in town, and my sister was there, and they were just like that's cool. So like every time Ovechkin jumped over the boards, you were jumping over the boards. It's like that's.
So they all came to Colorado to watch, or they met you the game in Washington?
In Washington, because they're just
okay.
right there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It was awesome, and then
wow.
That was really cool. And like then I played a lot that game, and I remember I think the next day we played Atlanta, and I only played 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's just part of
it. Inconsistency with the ice time.
Yeah, it's just the way it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You have to adapt, and
yes,
that's fine. Like you have to bring value somehow, and that's just the way it is. And yeah.
So now, Greg, obviously you had an incredible year. Like, dude, you're there's so much incredible stuff about you that right now I'm picking and choosing what I'm going to attack here. Okay. I really want to get into the USA hockey experience because I want you to explain like what your role was with that and if you're going to continue doing that, all that kind of stuff. But the Swiss Elite League, Switzerland. I mean, dude, from what I've been told, I played with a guy. One guy I played with, his name's Steve Brule. He had a kid when he played in Switzerland.
Yeah.
He told me, he's like, Sean, just imagine you're sitting in the hospital, you're about to have your son. And then you got this beautiful woman coming up to you with this platter saying, sir, would you like a tea or a coffee? Or he said it's just so incredible, the treatment of when you're playing at an elite level of hockey in that country. Did you get that experience, like that you were VIP the whole time?
I wouldn't say the whole time, but man, it's different. It's different. I mean, you're in Switzerland, and where I was in Fribourg, you drive 30 minutes in any direction, and there's mountains. I was going snowboarding on a lot of occasions that I probably shouldn't have been. But that year, it was a lockout year, and I actually ended up going over, and we ended up having a really good team. We ended up losing, so it was cool because a lot of the NHLers went over that year. Like David Desharnais was on our team, but then there was like Sagan was there, Kane was there, Petretti. Bergeron, Spezza, like it was an awesome league. It was like, man, it was, I remember Tavares was there. It was Duchesne, like really.
But there's a reason for this, though.
There's a reason.
Greg.
Yeah.
Guys want to play there because of the treatment, the money, the scenery.
I mean, our furthest trip was 3 hours.
Okay.
I mean, we'd have games that we'd go 20 minutes down the road and be at the visiting team's rink. You know what I mean? So it was from that standpoint an easier lifestyle. Now, with that said, I think there's a lot more pressure on the imports when you go there. You have to perform. You have to have.
How many per team?
We can only play 4. You can only play 4 imports.
Okay, so it's only 4 of you. Okay.
You either got to produce, you got to bring something to the team.
Yeah.
And like I think my first year there, I was pretty fortunate enough. We were surrounded by some good imports, but a lot of good Swiss players that took that burden away from me. And I had a Swiss Canadian coach that really liked my penalty killing and my style of play, so it helped out. But yeah, with that said, like a lot of sponsors, you make your money through your sponsors. So like when I got there, I ended up it was a French speaking part of Switzerland. I ended up learning French. It's a business, right? So I ended up learning a little bit. By November, when I was there, they offered me another 2-year They offered me a 2-year extension, and I was like,
"Wow!"
I was like, "Man, I love it here. Like, yeah, I want to stay."
2 year, wow.
And then then I started really playing like more offensive and understanding like how the Swiss league worked. But I remember after that first year, what kind of separated it a bit was for the playoffs. I ended up, guys were doing like mohawks and this sort of thing, and I went with one of the guys. I was like, maybe I should do something. And we had a team dinner that night. I was like, maybe I should I should do something. And I remember one time in high school, the kids, like when I was younger, the older guys grabbed me. They shaved my head like Mr. T. And I thought my dad was gonna be pissed. My sister was older; she knew. And so I'm walking around I'm like, I'm in the 8th grade, and I'm walking around with my winter hat on, and my dad's like, "Ooh, what do you have your head on? What's on for?" Because I didn't want to show him. I thought he was gonna be pissed. He's like, like a Navy guy, and so he's like chasing me around the house. He cackles me, and he's dying laughing. He thought it was the coolest thing ever. He's like, "Oh, this is awesome!" Like shave your head. So when I went to Switzerland for the playoffs, I was like, I'm gonna shave my head like Mr. T again, and the crowd loved it. So they ended up calling me Barracuda because, the show The A-Team with Mr. T.
Yeah.
And in the French version, his name is Barracuda. So they started chanting Barracuda like that.
No way.
After that, anytime I scored a goal, they'd play the A-Team theme song. So it was awesome.
Really? So, man, that is such a good experience.
It was every time it was like dun, 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 and it was
no way. How many seasons did that go on for?
5 seasons.
The whole time.
The whole time. Until I left, they were still playing that song. And like guys on other teams would be like, "You have your own goal song?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so." They're like, "That's actually pretty cool." Yeah.
Wow, man.
But anytime, even now, when I hear that song, I'm just kind of like, "Yeah, that's cool."
You get fired right up, eh?
Yeah,
buddy. I hear you, man. I hear you. That's so incredible. So, like, did they like? You were there for so long, bro. Has there been any other imports that have played for that team for so long?
There've been a handful of guys that have played there for 3 or 4 years, but I don't think that long. Like, yeah, I remember even some of the guys on my team are like to stay on one team and switch on that long. Like, it's a pretty big achievement. And like I said, I got pretty fortunate. I got a coach that liked the way I played. After a couple of months, they extended me for 2 more years, and then when that 2 years was up, the same situation around November, they signed me for another 2 years. And
oh man, that's so sweet.
Yeah. It's just funny, like how it all works out. Like, okay, I didn't have that 10-year NHL career that I always wanted, but like those NHL games helped get me that contract that helped. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, it all is all a part of the puzzle, man.
And it just
I get it.
And
that's so cool, dude. 5 years in Switzerland.
Yeah, it was awesome. I remember.
Do you qualify to get your passport now or something? You lived there so long?
No? I mean, yeah, I think you have to get married and have kids. And
okay. Yeah.
Because I have one of my buddies that's there. He ended up just getting, I think, his Swiss pass and stuff like that. But man, it's a beautiful place to live, and it's just funny. Like, when I look back, I guess at my whole hockey career, like, yeah, your ultimate goal is to make the NHL, but now, like, you can use hockey as a tool. And I look back, I'm like, got me free education, which I should have taken probably more advantage of. It's allowed me to see the world now. I've been living in different countries and learning different languages and having life experiences that I probably couldn't have gotten in college for sure. But you just look at it and you're like, man, like it's just, even in that time, like, I've seen technology completely change. Like,
I know.
From when I was in Sweden till now, it's like, yeah.
Well, here's one question I have for you. Now, I started my Facebook account in 2010 when I was playing for the Belfast Giants, my first year overseas. Okay, you started in Switzerland in 2012, but that must have been like you said, the whole social media thing just completely changed the dynamics of sports and many parts of our lives.
I mean, you think sports, friendships, how you connect with people. I actually got to a point where I think I just took my Facebook down because I was almost sick of it, to the point I was it's too close. But
yeah,
I mean, I think about it when I was going over to Sweden when I was, I think, 24. Like, the iPhone wasn't even out yet. FaceTime wasn't a thing. you still had to use like a calling card if you wanted to call people. Text
Was
them with
BBM yet or no? BlackBerry Messenger?
yeah, that was there. People had that. People
BBM, okay. So that was like the BBM BlackBerry.
Yeah, people are still using like
BlackBerry.
ICQ and like AIM and that sort of thing, and even like Skype was like the big thing then, and now it's like you got the Zoom, you got the FaceTime, like
so much.
You can sit anywhere, get on the Wi-Fi, and communicate with anybody. Like just like this now, like it's just and I feel like that's why I feel like the old guy. Like back in my day, we didn't have this or that and anything, but like you look at it, like how many times you'd have to cross the border, like if you're playing Hamilton or Toronto, and you're like, I can't use my phone for these couple hours because I don't have that plan to go over there, and it's
That's
gonna
right.
That's right. Where now you just like you do that, you go to the hotel or you have a special plan that has that in it. It's so different.
Yeah.
But,
you've come a long way, man.
But
like it's interesting. It's cool that you pointed that out because like I mean we're both 82s, we're the same age, man. It seems like our era just lived through that change, man, because we were adults when it started and we were young adults when it's now. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's kind of unique for guys close to our age, you know?
It really is. It's cool though. It's cool.
Like, it's very cool.
Stuff, but.
So dude, okay, so I want to, like, when I first saw like the pictures of the USA Hockey stuff, I was like, man, that is so cool. And then I'm like, man, this guy's coaching that development system. I'm like, I know a lot about that because those are the programs of the guys that we play in Major Junior. They were usually in that program. Guys on the Plymouth Whalers, all the, you know what I mean? Like, so I know about it. I know how intense and how good it is. And how those kids, man, they're in it for life. It seems those kids that are part of that program. How long so you did do it. Obviously you're playing now in Norway currently, which is incredible, bro. But like, how long did you do USA, or are you still a part of it, or what's the deal with that?
Yeah, so I essentially did it for, I guess, a year and a half.
Okay.
They're a little bit late and I left early to start playing again. I mean, it's different. It's different being on that side of the bench, and you're dealing with such young players. So my first year, I had the U18 guys, which is cool because it was their draft year, and you can see that they're excited. We had 14 guys get drafted, and going through was cool. And the cool part was like all these NHL scouts are contacting me, hey, calling me, and it's guys like my player development coach in Columbus was the guy that contacted me, and I'm like, Paul, he's like, what's up, man? He's like, how you doing? And he's like I saw I saw Jamie Pusher, who's playing in Syracuse, right? And I haven't seen him since.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I'm with Tampa now, and I'm just like, what? Like, you just see so many people and players. Like I said, I played with Jeff Sanderson when I was 21, but now his son is like a stud defenseman. I saw him there, and I'm like,
defenseman?
Yeah, and I'm just like, you start creating those reconnections. Like I got really pretty close with Chris Draper because he was always at our games. So it was weird.
Scarborough, man.
He's like, hey, Mauldin. I'm like, man, Chris Draper knows who I am. Like, this is pretty badass. you get a lot of these connections through that program, which are a lot of networking, and you're handing out your business cards and that sort of thing. But to make that decision to go there, it happened pretty quick. If I'm being completely honest, obviously I wanted to play again, but with things going on with COVID, you just didn't know. I was set to sign on with a team in France. COVID happened again, shut down. That same time when I was doing that, and this is something that people don't believe me, but it's actually pretty interesting. I was so my dad was in the Navy. My sister's a police sergeant. I was actually to possibly go into the Air Force. Like I'd met with recruiters. I started doing some training, and I was going to go in the Air Force. I don't know if my heart was really truly into it, but I guess going back, when I didn't have a contract and I ended up going to Sweden, I called my buddy, who actually is a video coach for the Nashville Predators, and I told him, I was like, I'm quitting. I'm going to quit hockey. Like, I'm no good because I can't get a contract in the American League. No one can even give me an American League deal. I can't even get a coast team. Like, I'm going to go to the Marines. And he was the one that actually told me, like, no, man, go to Europe, take a year, sort things out at Hungary. So I always
identify yourself.
Yeah, so I always had that inner inner like side of like going into military. And then that same friend called me up one day. We were talking one day. He's like, "You ever think about coaching?" And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, "Well, the U.S. national development team is looking for an assistant coach."
No way.
I said, "Okay." He put me in contact with the new head coach. We talked on a Thursday. On a Friday, handed him my resume. Had a Zoom call. On that Saturday, they offered me the job, and then I was like, "Well, I guess I'm a coach now. I guess I retired." That's how quick it happened. It was like boom.
And then where was the program based? Like, where is it?
In Plymouth, Michigan.
It is in Plymouth. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why I had Plymouth on my mind. Okay. Right on, man.
Right where the Whalers played, I guess.
Right on. So that's okay. Cool. I'm glad you confirmed that.
It's in Plymouth. It's they did a lot. I mean, they have a nice gym. They have a shooting room. Those players get everything. They get it all. You think about it. You're coming in at 16 and you get all the whatever sticks you want, whatever skates. You get your gloves. You get brand new gear. You all of a sudden for the first time you have an equipment manager. You have a physical therapist. You have nutritionist. You take online classes. It's like really like you have everything. It's like it's your job not to mess it up, really. You get all the work you need. You get all the coaching. The kids are really, really fortunate. And some take more advantage of it than others. And it's funny when you talk to the kids during I guess the recruitment of the trial process, how bad kids say, I want to be here. I want to be, because I had the 17s this past year. So I got them at when they're, how bad I want to be here. I want to be here. I want to be a hockey player. And they say it, but they don't really get it until maybe December, because they do a lot of losing early because they're still in their midget hockey ways where I was the man, I was going to dominate. All of a sudden, the best. At 16, you're going against 18 and 20-year-olds that are going to their draft year already committed, and you can't do the same things physically. You're just not strong enough, and they've seen all that stuff before. They've seen the little toe drags, and they'll just lay a body into you and they'll take the puck, and so there's that learning curve of taking your lumps. But even towards, I'd say, December, January, and up until I left, you sort of see a change in the kids and how they played. They play better defensively, stopping in the house. Instead of losing games, 7-2 or 7-3, all of a sudden we started, by December, January, you're losing USHL games 5-3. It's a 4-3 game and they score an empty net to make it 5-3, or and then we started winning games in the USHL, and you could start to see the guys changing. It's not just about me. If I do what's best for the team, I'll get my points, but the team will win and we'll have more fun.
They started figuring it out.
Yeah. And it's good. It's because you just don't know. It can be a real frustrating process. But some really good players come through there. They have the world by the balls, and I just hope that they continue to take just take everything they can from the program while they're there, because it goes by quick. I was there for a year and a half, and it went by in a blink.
Wow. I mean, I always heard how incredible a program it was, but to hear it from the coach, exactly what those kids get, that's an opportunity of a lifetime. And I guess it's just a matter of how hard the kid's going to work and figure it out, like you're describing just now, right?
Yeah, and a lot of it's really new to them, like having all the video sessions, having, even equipment guy that takes care of all their stuff, like a whole nice locker room that they have, having a strength and conditioning coach that's always on them, like, hey, what are you eating? Well, you got to do this, got to do that. The academic side of it, having structure, someone living away from home for the first time. So that's tough, and even from my standpoint, in my role, there was a lot of doing curfew checks, making sure kids we had an incident there. Nothing too crazy, but that's a situation that you have to do. And it's funny, in my role, you get it's just like being a rookie again. Order the pizzas, make sure that the foods, make sure stuff at the hotel, the bus is on time, make sure the video set up for the head coach, or just those sort of things. And essentially, where I was, it's like they all come in at 16 years old, so they don't. It's hard to have a leader. You go to most junior teams, there's a guy that's older, that's like the veteran.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like putting my role like you're their captain, like kind of teach and lead away, like. And we try to like instill like leadership qualities in kids and try to put kids in leadership positions. Like, all right, these are the captains maybe for this international event and that sort of thing. And it's funny because in that time you're playing against the kids are 16, you're playing against 18 and 20-year-olds. You forget to playing against 18 and 20-year-olds, and they go back playing international events against their own age group, and you're like, oh, they're good, they're really good, but haven't figured it out against older guys yet. But now you start to see it. You start to see they're obviously getting better and handling it a lot better now.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's that insight I really appreciate. And man, I get excited for these kids because because we know what opportunity can do for us. Like the times in our journeys that we've had good opportunities. You know what I mean? It might have taken us until we got a little bit older to realize it, but man, these opportunities these guys are getting.
Well,
Tough to hook.
It's tough because there's a lot of entitlement. There's a lot of entitlement with the kids, I feel like, and we try to knock that out of them. That's a huge word that we use there, entitlement. We try to get that out of their system as early as possible. And they have all the opportunities to do these things, but it's almost they're still you almost have to just kind of get rid of some of those old habits and those old minds of thinking. Because now it's funny, man. You're not just dealing with the kids. You're dealing with the parents. You're dealing with the agents. You're dealing with their skills coach, the defensive coach, this guy and that guy, and it's tough. I was fortunate I didn't have to deal with a lot of the agents and the parents, but I don't know. It's tough because those kids, they say they want to be pros. But they don't like back checking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Like,
yeah.
I don't want to block a shot. I want more ice time, but I want to kill penalties, and I don't want to, do the right things. Like, hey, listen, I remember there's one time our head coach and the head coach ended up catching COVID, and me and the assistant got to run it, and the kids weren't having a good practice, and I was like, I'm not watching this. Like, I put them on the line and started calling kids out. Like, hey, what's your goal in life? I want to be a pro hockey player. I want to make the NHL. I said, with that kind of effort and practice, you think that, let's go. Give me a mountain. Came back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I did that to him twice, and I'm not a big fan of doing that. I think you can get a lot of work, and just having real talks with them. You don't have to yell at them. Just having real talks with them. And I remember that weekend they played really hard, and I remember talking to one of the kids, and I was like, I appreciate the effort, but I just don't ever see you guys do that in practice again. And he's like, yeah. He's like, actually, the guys were like more just disappointed that we let you down, that we didn't practice hard. And it was good for me from that standpoint. Like, okay, this is how I can connect with the kids. This is how they feel. This is how I was feeling. And I can be hard on them. But then I can joke around with them 5 minutes later because they know it's all out of love and out of just trying to make them the best player that they can be. And I think, that's what I've learned as coach. I think coaching it can be tough, especially at that age.
Yeah.
It can be very rewarding. But I think you just got to find, I ended up finding out what kind of coach that I want to be if I ever go down that route again, and what kind of coach I don't want to be, all in the same timeline. And you have to sort that out. There's some things that, I'll take bits and parts from all the coaches there that I liked, some that I didn't like, and I'll just do what I think is right. And it's really nice that I'm actually able to coach and then come back and play now and have that same, and it's been pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, how many imports are on your current team in Norway?
We can play with 6.
You can play with 6, and are most of the guys from North America?
Yeah, we can play with 6, but we have 7. But they're all from North America, all the guys, and it's a good group. I mean, this is why I came back here. I was here when the pandemic hit. We had 113 points. We're set to probably win the whole thing, and then the pandemic hit.
Oh no!
It was over. Like, we were finished. We had lost 4 games that whole year.
You guys are like the '93 Montreal Expos.
Yeah.
Baseball went on strike. They would have won it.
And then we were just like, damn. And then everything came back around, and I ended up started. It's funny how I started playing again was, with everyone with the taxi squads with COVID and stuff.
Yeah.
Some the East Coast needed players, and one of the assistant coaches had played in Kalamazoo and was like, "Hey, they need some players. They want you to play." And I was like, my equipment's not here. Went home for Christmas, got my equipment, brought it back, started skating in the morning, and
Yeah.
A couple, and then they're like, "Are you gonna play? You want to play?" So I drove about 2 hours up to Kalamazoo, played, and I was like, we lost, but I remember like,
how'd you feel?
It was funny at that. I was just running on adrenaline. That's all. Like it was crazy because who our coach was Nick Bootland, Darryl.
No way.
Yeah, and Joe,
the
goalie there. So I remember him after the game. We just lost, and I'm trying not to like. I'm excited because I'm like, I hadn't played in, I think it was 682 days. I hadn't played, and that was and I had one practice, and then I went right to a game, and I didn't even practice with the team. I practiced with my U17 kids, and then I went right to a game, and it was awesome.
Oh man!
And they came to me afterwards, like, there wouldn't have been one hit thrown that game if you didn't throw a hit. I was out there just trying to hit guys. It was actually pretty funny, and the guys were like, calm down. And I'm like, I'm just like, and then, then I got the old chirps, like a couple games, oh, let the kids play, blah, blah, and all that stuff.
That's part of the game though, right? That's part of the game.
Man,
but
I'm like, that's a chirp I used to use to guys that were like 28, and I'm like, now guys are using it to me at 39. I'm like, that's awesome.
Greg, that's so awesome, buddy. Bro, I had such a good time in this episode, bro. I know we went way over the limit. And I apologize, man. I had to try to squeeze as much as I could out of you. You're so interesting, buddy. You're such a good role model, man. You should think about TV and broadcasting, bro. You speak so well, man. And you're very descriptive. I bet you have a lot of opportunity, is what I'm trying to say, bro. And sorry, go ahead, buddy.
We'll see. I mean, I don't know if that's really for me. I kind of just like to hang in the background. Honestly, I just like.
I hear you.
I'm just kind of do my own thing, but you never know. There might be some things in the works. I can't really discuss that right now.
Okay, right on. Okay, no, it's good. It's good to create suspense, Greg. Yeah. You got it figured out, bro. You got it figured out. Whenever you can have some excitement leading up, that's the key, man. And dude, I like I said, bro, I had a really good time. The listeners are gonna send me so many emails about this because you gave out so much information. I learned a lot too, bro. So I really appreciate it. Yeah, dude, thank you for coming on, man. But I gotta put you on the spot. Are you willing to come back for a part 2?
Oh, heck yeah. Oh, for sure, man. There's still plenty of stuff to talk about here.
No, I know that there is, buddy. I'm gonna have you sooner than later, bro. But the thing is. Sorry, go ahead.
Things end up going the way they're supposed to in the next month or so here. There'll be
some news?
Yeah, there'll be some good news.
Okay, so I might have to get you on in the next month then.
Yeah. It looks like it's heading that way, but I don't want to.
Yeah, no, I hear you, buddy. Hey, that's the perfect way to put it, man. Yeah. Now I'm all excited to hear about the Greg Mauldin news coming up.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome, bro. So I hope you had a really good time, and I'm looking forward to you coming back. But the thing is, bro, is now I have your contact, so you're stuck with me now, buddy.
That's fine.
We're in it together, bud. I'm going to be messaging you. You're stuck with me now, bud.
Hey, I'll do it again, man. This is awesome. This is good.
Awesome, buddy. I appreciate it. So we're gonna sign off to the listeners, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Sheriff featuring special guest Greg Mauldin, the pride of Massachusetts. Thanks for having on, Greg.
Thanks for having me, Sean. I appreciate it. This is awesome.
All right, guys, we're going to sign out. Woo!